Okay, so basically I'm going to show you guys how I get this thing sharp. And this is chisel. This is full skip chisel. This is 63 gauge. That meaning the driver down here, the little thing that sticks in the slot of the bar, that's called the driver. The thickness of it is 0.063 thousandths of an inch thick, and that's the thickness. And then the pitch on this is 3/8 pitch. That's the different distance from one drive link rivet, and then you count over 1, 2, and then you divide that in half. Anyways, I don't want to confuse you with too much information, but you got to know the basics of your chain. You got to know what kind of chain you have, whether you have what gauge it is, what pitch it is, and what style of chain you want, whether you want round tooth, skip tooth, full skip, or whatever. And it's hard to find round chisel. Round chisel is where the grind on the inside of the gullet is round. The tooth itself has a square shape to it. The outside edge is square, very square. It's not rounded. The round tooth, the outward edge is rounded. So everyone nowadays just sells full chisel cut, and it doesn't have a round file anymore. Oregon used to make one and they discontinued it for some reason. So I'm going to show you how I sharpen. The way I like to sharpen is I like to straddle the chainsaw. My stand is falling over. What I do is I like to find a stump or a piece of wood, anything. Don't use a rock. You want to use something that's not going to hurt the chain. And I just straddle the chainsaw like this to hold it. So I've got it like this between my legs. I'm clamping it. And the nice thing I like about sharpening like this is the way I do it, is I can sight right down the bar, so I can see the angles on the teeth. I can see the angles, I can see the... Sharpening is very visual. You have to see your chain, and you want to see the condition of your chain. And so what I do is you need a starting point. I usually use the offset link, usually one of these where the chain is hooked together, there's like an offset where there's an extra link. This was made perfectly. It has no offset. They're all uniform and balanced. So what I usually do is I put a mark in here with my chalk. I just put a mark on there. And that'll remind me, this is a mark stick paint stick. It'll kind of work. I just need a mark so that I know when I come back around to this area, I know where I started. So I decide I'm going to start on the left side or the right side. I'm going to start on sharpening the left side. So I'll start here. I'm sighting down my bar. I can see the angles, and I'm going to decide. I take an overall look at the teeth. I take an overall look at the condition, how badly dull they are. And I decide, is this going to be a 6-stroke sharpening, a 5-stroke, 7, 10, 12? And I guess these aren't that bad. I'm just going to do 5. A 5-stroke. Okay, so let me see if I can find my mark again. There it is, white. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to do 5 strokes. And I'm going to try to notice my angle in here and maintain that angle. And I'm using my helper hand. I use my other hand to help guide it. So I just guide it along. You always cut on the push stroke. That's the way the teeth are designed. They're designed to cut on the push stroke. So you don't go back and forth with a file like that. Don't do that. You just go forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nice and sharp. And it's the leading edge that's important. This leading edge right here. You want to have a nice clean metal all the way along, a nice sharp edge. If you hit a rock or something and you ground that metal back any distance, that means you're going to have to sharpen that tooth all the way back, and that means you're going to have to sharpen all the other ones the same amount because you want them to be uniform. You don't want one of these teeth more sharpened than the other. Uniformity is important. It's very important that all the teeth are uniform in their angle and uniform in the amount of tooth that's been taken off, because as you sharpen them back, they change shape. They're actually ramped back. So in order for them to all be uniform, the same height and angle and everything, and the gullet depth, how far you're sharpening down into the gullet is very important. So that has to all be maintained uniform. So now I'm going to start with my next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I push it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. Now I'm back to where I started. So now I'm going to switch sides. And I like to go pushing the chain forward. Some people I've taught, they push the chain backwards and they go around the other way. I go this way. So now I'm going to switch sides. You have to be kind of ambidextrous. You have to be good at doing something with your right hand and left hand. You can use the right hand to guide it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 5. I would recommend wearing gloves when you're doing this. In fact, I have a pair of gloves right here. Let me put them on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, some people like to make it difficult on people, like some of my logger friends, from the old school, they're like, you have to rotate it while you're sharpening, buddy. You don't have to. The way they make teeth now, good files, especially this brand right here, Furred, they put a spiral pattern, a nice one in there where you can just push straight. What I do is I do my 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when I come up to the next tooth, I rotate it in my hand a little bit. And I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I rotate it in my hand a little bit. And then I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have to twist it while you're cutting. The reason why they had to do that in the old days is because they were using junky files. These good files, they cut so good. You don't need to use that old magic trick. You can just push it straight, keep the file clean. I usually have a toothbrush here, and I toothbrush it off. I always keep a toothbrush in my tool bucket for my chainsaws, and I keep the file. You can brush the filings out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So anyways, I'm going along. I'm not going to waste too much of your guys' time, but you get the idea. I can keep the angle, I can sight down it, I've got stability on the saw. Now, if you can't be on your knees while you're sharpening, I do this in the field all the time. I'll go up to a stump, I'll just sharpen my chainsaw on it. You can have a workbench. They make devices that will clamp your chainsaw to your bumper or to your 2-inch receiver in the back of your truck. You can get systems like that. They make a thing where you can mount a vise to a stump. Bailey's carries that. All those tree companies carry one of those. I just use a stump like this. I just keep it simple. I don't want to have to go out to my truck and get a special device. But if some people can't kneel, you want to stand up, you can get a portable vise system that mounts in your 2-inch receiver on your truck. Or you can just take the chain off and put on a new chain, and then take your chain into a shop and have them sharpen it. But I'm sure this video is about, this is for people that want to learn how to sharpen in the field. Okay, so I go around, I do 5 strokes on the other side. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this and I'll edit the video. Okay, I finished. And then about every 4th time I sharpen, I go and I do the rakers. And I just do it by hand. I don't use gauges. I'm showing you guys, this is how I do it by hand. I used to use gauge systems. They are good. You should start out with them if you're starting out. But the way I do it is I can tell by the size of the shiny spot. When you file, and I'm not going to file these because I already have them set the way I want them, but when you file over, and these are special files, by the way, that are made for this job. They're made by Oregon. They're Swiss made. They have smooth sides that are slightly rounded, so you don't, if you bump into the teeth, you don't damage the teeth. They're good files. This is what you want to get. You want to get a real raker file. Get a Swiss made one. Don't buy any files other than German and Swiss. I'm telling you, or Swedish. Swedish are okay. I've seen some made in Finland. The Scandinavian countries and Germanic, they make the best files. I haven't seen Japanese files. If they made them, they'd probably be good, but I've never bought an American-made file. I believe in buying American-made stuff, but American-made files are junk. They don't make a good file. So I'm not going to do a class on how to do your rakers. You should use your own raker gauge, but use a raker file. I just go over, and I can tell by the size of the shiny spot. I use that as a gauge for how far down I've gone, because the further you go down on the raker, the larger the surface area that you've flattened becomes. That flat area that is created by the raker file creates a round and ovoid flat area, and the larger it becomes, that means you've gone down farther. So I try to make them all look uniform. That's the way I do it, and it works fine for me. And once in a while I check up with my gauge. I have a furred gauge made by this company. Furred, the horse, made in Germany, or get Oregon files. The furred gauge, Still has come out with one that looks really good. I haven't bought it yet, but I saw it at the Still store. They're about 40 bucks, and it has 2 files and a raker file built in this device, and it has the angles already set on it, so it helps guide you through the angles. But this is how to sharpen with just a hand file in the field. All right, here, let me show you that gauge thing. Okay, well, here's my furred gauge. They still make these. This is set up for sharpening the left-hand side of the tooth, the teeth on the left side. So you start on the right side because you're pushing this direction. And it has this preset gauge angles right here. They have it set at 35 degrees. And so you can set up the angle here and then copy that angle. I like to sharpen more at like 32 or 30 degrees, personally. There's nothing wrong with 35 degrees. And then you can switch this out. You can switch the, you can flip the file over here, and then you have to make sure that you flip the raker as well. And then now I can sharpen on this side. And the cool thing about this is it has a built-in raker file, and it has these rails right here. These metal rails ride on the adjacent tooth. It rides right on the top of this tooth, and it acts as a gauge to set the depth of the gullet and the depth of the raker file. So yeah, that's that. And just the main thing is keep that leading edge. If you're using chisel tooth, the point has to come to a sharp point. And uniformity of all the teeth being uniform, having the same amount they're filed back, the same depth in the gullet, the same angle on all of them, and all of them being sharp. And when you do the rakers also have to all be uniform. Uniformity is the key in smooth chainsaw cutting. Uniformity. They have to be uniform, because you want all the teeth to take the same amount of bite. If you have one tooth that's taking more bite than the other, you're going to get a chattery kind of a pull. When you're running, it's going to go, it's going to be cut in like that. It's not going to be cutting smooth. When they're all uniform, you're going to have a buttery, smooth, nice cut when they're all uniform. And so it takes practice. It's visual. You have to pay attention. You have to look. You have to use your eyes. You have to pay attention to detail. You have to focus. And yeah, it's just something you do, you know. You either learn how to do it, or you're going to have to take it into the shop and have them sharpen your chain on a machine. If you can afford a Sylvie grinder, good for you. Those are like, finding one now is, you're lucky if you could get one used for $1,800. But anyways, that's how I do it. And I always get the best files. Don't buy junky files. Either get Swiss made or German made files. All right.